What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Back to 12 podcast. I am RC Maxfield. Appreciate y'all spending some of y'all's Wednesday night or whenever you may be listening to this live video. A lot to discuss for Texas Tech men's basketball as the Red Raiders, let's just say survived. That's probably the nicest way to say it, right? They just absolutely survived in a very, very, very sloppy game up in Manhattan, Kansas. We'll discuss that. We'll also discuss what Grant McCasland had to say about star forward JT Toppin and his health and why he really hasn't looked the same, in terms of these past really about 3 halves of basketball. We'll discuss that. And then we'll also look ahead to in what might be, I haven't decided yet. We'll see when we get there later on. I think it might be a must-win game for the Red Raiders against Arizona. We'll preview that, but before we do, be sure to like the video. Again, greatly appreciate y'all spending some of your Wednesday evening with me to discuss all things Texas Tech men's basketball. And without further ado, let's just jump right into this because I think last night saying that game was sloppy is probably the nicest way to say it. I thought Texas Tech played maybe one of the furthest things in terms of their brands of basketball that we have seen. It was the furthest thing from it. And specifically down the stretch, I mean, it was brutal. In the final 6 minutes, Texas Tech won the scoring battle. You ready for this? 4-2. Kansas State was held without a field goal for the final 5 minutes in 55 seconds. Okay, it was absolutely disgusting. And when I say a field goal, I mean no points, okay? They were 0 of 8. In 1 of 12 was Kansas State on their last 12 shots in the game. Now, some of that was obviously due to the Texas Tech defense. I thought they stepped up in some key moments. I thought they for some reason, decided to double Coleman Hawkins, who was just not worth doubling. And they paid the price as they left the Amarillo native Husson wide open. I mean, for 3 multiple times. But overall, I thought this was probably the sloppiest you were going to see Texas Tech play in really every facet of the game. I was talking on Twitter Spaces and probably going to move those Twitter Spaces to here in terms of post-game shows. So if you want to stay in the know on that, another reason to like the video and hit that subscribe button for instant reaction post-game. So going to start doing that here soon. But if you look at the stats for Texas Tech, they shot 50% from the field, 38% from 3. They won the rebounding battle by 11. They had 4 more turnovers. There's no real reason why this game should be close. Now, the interesting part is this, okay? When you look at it, Texas Tech only had 7 free throws compared to 12 by Kansas State. Kansas State made 10 free throws compared to Texas Tech's 4. Okay, there's 6 points right there. We could just even cut it in half and let's just say 3 in terms of just like normal ebbs and flows of a game, what it could potentially look like. But then they also had 9 threes. A Kansas State team that came into this matchup against the Red Raiders is one of the worst shooting teams in the Big 12. Shot 30% from 3, relatively close to their season average, while Texas Tech only took 13 threes in this game. That's not good enough. They have to shoot more because this team is elite at shooting. That was the real difference. You think about it. That's 12 points right there and then 6 points in terms of the free throw line. That's a 16-point difference. Let's just cut it in half and say they have an 8-point difference. We're playing the what-if game, but you go all the way down to 49 there if you're the Kansas State Wildcats, and it's a 12-point victory instead of a 4. Again, wasn't pretty by any stretch of the imagination by Texas Tech last night, and even Grant McCasland after the game said he needed to do a better job subbing. He looked at some of the numbers in terms of guys and really how many minutes they played, and it was substantial. You had Elijah Hawkins. He played 37 minutes. D5 played 35, and he was on a sprained ankle for most of the second half. You had Christian Anderson, the true freshman, played 29 minutes, 28 minutes for Fetty. You had 33 for Chance McMillan, who somehow only had 3 points in this game with 3 rebounds. You got to get him going if you want to actually prove and live up to that hype that I think a lot of Texas Tech fans have the expectation for, and this team is talented enough to do. It's really interesting to see because, again, an ugly win is better than the alternative, right? Like, it's better than the alternative in terms of, like, just losing and losing to a team that is clearly, and I mean clearly worse than you. But it's one of those deals for me when I look at it. I mean, that's probably the sloppiest you're going to play all year. And that's probably the least amount of points you're going to score all year outside of probably the 2 times you play Houston, because Houston has the best defense in the country. And if you score 61 points, you probably feel pretty damn good about that against Houston, regardless of where you play, by the way. But Texas Tech just seemed like there were some moments where they were very lackadaisical with the ball. The one that stands out to me, and I'm being hypercritical of him because I think he's played phenomenal basketball really since the Big 12 slate has started, it's Elijah Hawkins. There was a play with about 90 seconds, maybe 80 seconds left in the game where you get the steal. If you're Texas Tech, you're up and you can waste up to 30 seconds on the clock to make things difficult on Kansas State. But instead, he has a bounce pass to Chance McMillan that is basically airmailed. Yes, that makes no sense at all. A bounce pass that's airmailed. But that's what happened. It allowed Kansas State to have a chance to, tie the game. They missed it. And then inevitably on the next possession, D5 made that circus shot at the end. How about that? In 3 of the Big 12 games, Texas Tech has had an opportunity to win it or seal it, with D5 having the last shot in the final 30 seconds. And he's 1 for 3 so far. You'd like it to be 2 for 3, but overall, that's not too bad of odds when you think about it. He's your clear-cut closer. But overall, Elijah Hawkins was sensational in this game. So was D5. They combined for 30 of the 61 points in this game. Elijah Hawkins was 14 points, 6 of 11 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3. He needs to shoot the ball more from 3 to really open things up, I think, in the pick and roll and allow for more space for guys like Chance McMillan, Kerwin Walton, Kevin Overton to run off the ball and really just have better catch and shoot opportunities, because it allows defenses to respect him, push out further on the 3-point line. That allows dump offs to D5. JT Toppin, who are really good passers, and obviously Elijah is as well, as he had 9 assists in this game with 5 rebounds. D5, as I mentioned, 16, 4, and 3 in this game. He did have 3 turnovers as well. But overall, again, you think about it from this perspective. You won the game. It's weird, right? Like, you win the game, but how much better do you feel about this team? I think a lot of questions came forward, right? In terms of a lot of people were disappointed, even though it was only a 6.5-point spread. I think it actually closed at 6 on here. So you were pretty damn close to covering. It's hard as hell to win in the Big 12 on the road, as we all know. I just think it was the way that you won and how sloppy it was, and really just how unorthodox in terms of the expectation for this Texas Tech team being really good offensively. And the funny thing is if you look at their shot chart, it's basically they're either right at the rim or they're shooting a 3. I think they had a total of 4 mid-range jumpers in this game, did Texas Tech. Everything came in the paint or everything was a 3 ball. There was really no in between. And I thought that they did a really good job at getting to the rim. They struggled finishing sometimes, but overall, I thought that there was a lot of encouraging aspects offensively. And even defensively too, where they came out and they were physical. Now they need to be more physical for 40 minutes and not just stretches of a game. But I thought there were some positives, but overall it's like, all right, just move on to this game, almost damn near burn the film, right? And let's get focused on Arizona right away, because the Wildcats possess a major issue for Texas Tech, as it is Wildcat Hate Week here on the channel, as you already beat one Wildcat in the Kansas State Wildcats. Now you're hoping to beat the other Wildcats in the Big 12, this time down in Arizona. And I believe it's the first time you played the Wildcats in a while. I'm talking like, I think in a decade plus. First matchup since 2013 for Texas Tech. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Before we get into the JT Toppin update, let me know where you're watching from, and be sure to like the video. Only helps us. You want 100% free content on Texas Tech football, men's basketball all year long. This is the place for you. Appreciate each and every one of you that has reached out over the past, really 2 or 3 weeks. This has been an historic month here on the channel with the portal basketball season starting. We've had over 175,000 viewers here on the channel. It's been sensational stuff. So sincerely thankful to each and every one of y'all that continuously tune in, tell your friends about it. And really, if you're tuning in for the first time, join the Back to 12 squad today by simply liking the video and hitting that subscribe button. It's 100% free. You can't beat that. Like, legitimately, 100% free. Pretty cool stuff. All right, JT Toppin update, because I don't know about you. I'm not feeling 22. Had to do it. I'm sorry. I know some of y'all are going to leave after that. It was right there. Had to take it. Anyway, JT Toppin has not looked like himself for really the past, 3 halves of basketball, the second half against Iowa State. And he just didn't look like the player that I think every Texas Tech fan had grown accustomed to in terms of his play at Kansas State. He just wasn't very good. And it's interesting from that perspective because Grant McCasland was basically asked right away in his post-game presser there in Manhattan after a 61-57 win for the Red Raiders. And this was his direct quote. Head coach Grant McCasland discussed the Red Raider star forward recent play, saying, "To be blunt, JT Toppin isn't feeling great. He's not doing good today," obviously talking about Tuesday, the Kansas State game. And he wasn't feeling great in the Iowa State game in the second half either. He went on to say, he tried to gut it out and go play, and he just wasn't 100%. So you think about it from the JT Toppin perspective. Remember, he hurt his ankle. He rolled it, came back and played. But I think a lot of people thought, okay, how is that ankle? It seems like he's actually under the weather a little bit because it looked like some of his energy just wasn't there. And I understand. If I'm sick, I don't know if I want to play basketball either. He gutted it out. Was it his best performance? No. But it makes me feel better in terms of the explanation behind it. In terms of, would I have liked to seen JT Toppin play better? Yeah, you and me and everyone else that's a part of Red Raider Nation. But it makes me feel better in the sense that, okay, he was under the weather a little bit. They're trying to, just pick and choose when to use him. That would explain why he wasn't as explosive when it comes to being around the rim, going up with strength, getting to his left hand with ease, all of the things that we've grown accustomed to with JT Toppin. It makes you feel a lot better in that regard. Now, it seems like we're going to have to see and, how close to 100% is he going to be against Arizona? And this is a game where you have Toppin basically at 100% or as close as feasibly possible, because you have to have him against Arizona, a team that has multiple bigs that present multiple different challenges for the Red Raiders. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but I think it's good to think about it from the perspective of, okay, it's not the ankle. It's more so, an illness type deal. And that makes me feel a lot better in terms of the potential that he has going into the Arizona game, a game that, in my estimation, is probably a must win for the Red Raiders. And I hate using that term, but it feels like it is. Let me know in the comments if you guys think it is. We'll get started on the preview here in just a second for the Arizona game. But also let me know where you're watching from as well. And let's get a little bit of a Q&A going. Scott asked, when will we start running some damn inbound plays? Used to be an opportunity to score. Yeah, it's a good question. I think you're talking about the fact that Texas Tech is just chucking the ball deep to the other side of the floor, which I thought was interesting. But I also thought it was by design a couple of times. Other times it just felt like that was just like, hey, let's get it in bounds. But I don't mind it a few times to throw a different look at the defense for the sheer fact of you get a little bit of momentum to go downhill. And that feels like where Elijah Hawkins is at his best in the pick and roll, is where he can get a little bit of momentum, be aggressive, use his shiftiness towards the rim to create mismatches there. Does it work every time? No, but I think that that's part of an inbound play for them. But I get what you're talking about in the sense that, like, hey, like, where's the off-ball screens? That's something that really has, here we go, Scott. You got it out of me. You got it out of me, Scott. Really has just pissed me off the past few days, or the past few games, I should say. Like, offensively, this team is really freaking talented, man. And they just absolutely refuse, and appreciate the question, Scott. They refuse to run anything off ball. This shit is sick. Like, it makes no sense when 3 of your best shooters and really 3 of your best players on your roster are absolutely at their best when they're running off the ball, finding space, and trying to get in a situation to catch and shoot. You think about Chance McMillan. Can he beat you off the bounce in terms of can he be a primary ball handler in certain situations in the pick and roll? Absolutely, he can. But where is Chance McMillan at his absolute best? Running like he's I don't even know. Another way to describe it, like Steph Curry off the ball, just running. And again, I'm not comparing Chance McMillan to Steph Curry, even though his percentages line up with that. I digress. But he's best running off the ball, finding space, getting ready to catch and shoot. And he can beat you off the bounce. I'm cool with him dribbling. But you think about Kerwin Walton. What are his struggles attested to, right? Kevin Overton, a guy I'm extremely high on, right? The best aspects of their game offensively for Kerwin Walton and Kevin Overton specifically are when they run off the ball baseline after a big set to screen where they can run off, get to their left hand if they're Kevin Overton to shoot the shot off a catch and shoot in the corner, or Kerwin Walton running a little drag or what we call a hook route. At least that's what my high school coach called it. And basically just running a hook around the screen and basically ready to catch and shoot, have your hips ready, boom. JJ Redick was the guy that perfected it. Kerwin Walton does a phenomenal job at getting his base squared each and every time he catches the basketball. But they refuse to move around. And it makes no sense to me at all why they haven't done more of that, right? This offense is really freaking good. It's the best offense in the Big 12. Okay, maybe second. But they're top 10 in the country at worst in terms of numerous metrics, whether it's shooting, efficiency, multiple metrics. And the crazy part is I don't even think they're at their absolute best because they're not using 2 to 3 of their players in the best way possible. It makes no sense, and I think that that's the ceiling. You'll see the flip switch here soon, I think, for Texas Tech, because you have to get more out of Kevin Overton. You have to get more out of Kerwin Walton. You have to get more out of Chance McMillan. And again, this Kansas State game is a little bit more of a blip on the radar for him. Chance McMillan has been phenomenal this year. He's averaging close to 15 points per game. He has been a revelation for the Red Raiders in multiple ways, even impacting the game more so than he did in his first year on campus last year after transferring from Grand Canyon. He's a really freaking good player, okay? But the best aspect of this offense is their shooting. And what's the number one thing you need to shoot, at least at a high level, a majority of the time? Spacing. And they struggle with it sometimes. And this K-State game is a perfect example. It felt like they were getting into the lane at will, had multiple kick-out opportunities. I'm cool with taking the layup, obviously, but you got to kick it out sometimes to those open shooters because 3 is better than 2. That's just basic math. Not even a guy that went to school for something way off the radar of math can do that easy math right there, okay? Anyway, but I think that that's where Texas Tech can take their games to the next level on the offensive end. And the crazy part is I think it'll help them on the defensive end too, because more teams will press thinking, okay, they're shooting 3s on this end. It's just psychological in the sense of, okay, if they're shooting 3s down there, we need to catch up. They're going to take more bad shots in turn if Texas Tech even plays half-ass defense, right? So I think that that's something I'm watching for. Let's see if it actually happens. But Texas Tech is good enough to even be better offensively. And I think that that's something that's super interesting. Listening on my tractor right now. Let's go. Okay. That might be a first on the channel. First of all, I salute you, sir. I drove a Nissan Versa to work today. So different, I think, from what you're doing right now. Just maybe a little bit. And then Vinny went on to say, all the homies appreciate RC. I appreciate you, Vinny. And I appreciate your tractor. No pause. I know what you're thinking. Don't go down there. Don't do it. Don't be that guy. But yeah, appreciate you, Vinny. Before we get into the preview here for the Arizona game, answer this question. Transfer portal news. Yeah, the guy that I would be watching is Amari Evans, from Penn State, the wide receiver. I think that that's a guy that Texas Tech is very much in on in the portal. So there you go. Won't make a video about it, only if he commits. But Amari Evans, Penn State wide receiver, that's a guy that I would be looking at and monitoring if I was a Texas Tech fan and interested in the football portal. And by the way, he still can enter the portal because of the 5-day window after losing. He's already entered the portal, but he can enter the portal because he was a part of a semifinal team in the Penn State Nittany Lions. He is a Texas native. I believe he is from Killeen. Don't quote me on that, but Killeen sounds right. And he had an offer from Texas Tech, but I think at a high school, I think he's a guy to watch. He has 1 year of eligibility left, and he's a speedy wide receiver, fits the mold of what the Red Raiders are looking for at 6 foot 190, about 4.4 speed. He's the guy to look for there in terms of who I think they're going to try and pinpoint and add to the wide receiver room here late in this portal cycle. All right, let's jump into this Arizona game, and let me know in the comments, just real quick, is this a must-win game for Texas Tech? Simple Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comments. Is this Arizona game at home a must-win for Texas Tech? Just a Y for yes, N for no. Because I think I lean towards yes here, people. And the reason being is this. Texas Tech comes into this matchup 3-2 on the year in Big 12 play. Arizona is 5-0. Don't look at Arizona's record in terms of outside of conference play. Look at what they're doing right now. They were a preseason top 10, top 15 team were the Wildcats. They're playing like it now. There was a stretch in time where it looked like, oh, what's Tommy Lloyd team's doing? Well, they're back, and they're playing at an extremely high level, led by Caleb Love, the UNC transfer from a few years back. He's their lead guard out in Tucson, but they have multiple bigs and multiple guys that provide length on the outside, including a guy that Isaac just mentioned in the chat there, KJ Lewis. A guy from El Paso, was a very, very big target for Texas Tech in his high school days. He decided to go out to Arizona since that's where he grew up before moving to El Paso. But Caleb Love leads the way with 15.3 points per game. They have multiple bigs that you just have to account for. And to be honest with you, it feels like Arizona always has 2 or 3 bigs that are NBA bigs. And this is going to be an issue for Texas Tech, and a reason why I think JT Toppin has to be as close as 100% as possible. Like, simple and plain. Fetty is playing better than I think a lot of people thought he would, right? I think Fetty is playing at a pretty damn high level for the expectations. But you have to have JT Toppin in this basketball game as close to 100% as possible, because they have multiple guys, does Arizona, that present real challenges close to the basket and allows them to have multiple opportunities at second chance points. That's one thing you're going to have to limit. We'll get there in a second. But they also have really good guards. Again, Arizona is a blue blood program. They're one of the ones that I was, honestly, they were the team that I was most excited in the Big 12 adding from the Pac-12 just because of basketball. Really, I mean, they are a blue blood program. And again, this is the first time Arizona will be visiting the 806 or just playing Texas Tech in general since 2013. And they're coming off of a really hot stretch, are the Wildcats. Again, 5-0 in conference play. They beat the crap out of Baylor last night, a top 25 team in the Baylor Bears out in Tucson. It was by 11, but if you watch that game, they beat them by more than 11. You know what I mean? Like, the score really doesn't tell the whole story there. Arizona is ranked as a top 20 team in both KenPom and the net. And when you look at what this team is good at, they are really one of the more well-rounded teams in the country. They are a top 15 team in the country in terms of KenPom's offensive rating. They are also a top 25 defensive rating team, according to KenPom. They are just ahead of the Red Raiders in terms of that KenPom metric, just a couple of spots. But this is one of those things where I think Texas Tech, just truthfully, if they don't come out and punch first at home, right, this is a perfect situation for Texas Tech in the sense of you got that ugly win at Kansas State, so you're not, getting caught with the look-ahead moment, right? Like a lot of teams do, where it's like you play a really bad team, but there's a really good team next on your schedule, and you lose that game before you play the good team. That's not what's happening here for Texas Tech. They won the game, right? But they obviously have a lot to work on. But you think about it from this perspective for Texas Tech. You're headed back home. You're 0-2. There is zero reason any season Texas Tech should start Big 12 conference play 0-3. I don't care who you play, okay? However difficult it is, it's the Big 12, right? You just can't do that. So I think you got to have that chip on your shoulder, and I fully expect Texas Tech will. But also you're getting the students back. And a lot of people were asking in the Iowa State game, where are the students? What's happening? Well, school just started today, people. In terms of the first day of spring classes were today, Wednesday, January 15th, right? The students will be there on Saturday for this afternoon tip-off on ESPN2. And I fully expect Texas Tech to come out and punch first. That's something where I think it's maybe more critical than any other aspect of this game. A hot start for the Red Raiders, because if you can get this crowd involved early on, Arizona, they've played, and a lot of their players have played at a very high level in front of big crowds. I don't know if they have played in that hostile of an environment within the Big 12, if that makes sense. There's levels to it, right? Like, there's really only three, when things are going well for the programs, right? There are three programs and three buildings in the Big 12 that I think nobody wants to play in, right? You don't want to play in Allen Fieldhouse. You don't want to play up in Hilton Coliseum, and you sure as hell don't want to play at the USA, right? You get the students back. You have to give them a reason to get loud, rowdy, all that kind of stuff. And I think a hot start is a priority for Texas Tech. Now, I also think offensively, this is going to be a shootout. Both of these teams rank in the top 15 in terms of offensive rating on KenPom. Texas Tech is in the top 10. I already mentioned Arizona is in the top 15. This is going to be a shootout, okay? I truly believe that. And really where Texas Tech is going to win this game outside of a punching first scenario, in my opinion, there's a couple of obvious ones, right? Limit the turnovers. If you have 14 turnovers against Arizona, you're not winning the basketball game. You're just not, at least in my opinion, you're not going to win this game, okay? But I think you limit the turnovers. You're back home. You know what's at stake here. This feels like a must-win game almost in a lot of ways, right? But another aspect of things, we mentioned the bigs earlier here in the preview for this Arizona games on the Arizona side, in the sense that they are really good at second chance opportunities. You have to limit those if you are Texas Tech, because let's face it, Texas Tech's defense, is it bad? No. Is it good? No. I think it's pretty much average, and an average defense against this really good Arizona offense, if you get a stop, you have to get the rebound, okay? Like, if you create a miss, you have to get the rebound, because if they get second chance opportunities, and let's say they get in that neighborhood of 12 to 15 second chance points, good luck. You're probably not winning that basketball game. Again, the three most important aspects in this game for Texas Tech, in my opinion, are hitting first, right? You got to come out. You got to have a quick start. Get that crowd involved early. Let Arizona know that there are 16,000 strong Red Raiders in the USA. Okay. Second, got to limit the turnovers, right? Be aggressive. That's where you're best at in terms of your offense, getting out in transition, trying to push the envelope. Be aggressive, but also when you're being aggressive, there's a fine line there, and Texas Tech has proven that they can do it. Be aggressive, but also take care of the basketball, right? So that's the second biggest thing. And then the third biggest key for me in this one is limit the second chance opportunities for Arizona. I think if you can hold Arizona to really in that range of less than 10 second chance points, I think your chances of winning increase exponentially if you are the Red Raiders in this game. And the line isn't quite out yet. It'll come out on Friday, and I'll update you guys over on Twitter. You can follow me at RCMB323 over there. I would suspect this is going to be a damn near pick'em, with maybe Arizona slightly favored. I'm talking, I think this is at most a 2-point game either way in terms of the spread. That being said, I've already told you guys how I feel about this game. This is a must-win game, in my opinion, for Texas Tech. There is no excuse for you to start 0-3 at home in Big 12 play, in a place that is arguably one of, if not the hardest place to win in the Big 12 outside of Allen Fieldhouse. You have to win this game, because I don't know if y'all have looked at the February schedule, but the first 3 games in February are tough as hell. this stretch you have going on leading in to February, this is your toughest game. You have to win your home games, okay? You beat Kansas State. You've got Arizona, got to win this game. Then you go to Cincinnati. Then you play TCU and Oklahoma State at home. You got to go 4-1 here, right? At minimum 3-2, but that feels like you're still not in a great spot. You need to go 4-1. If you go 4-1, right, you're looking at 6-3 going into a stretch to begin February. Buckle the hell up, folks, because this 3-game stretch is brutal. You go to Houston, tough. You play Baylor at home, tough. Oh, and then you go play Arizona, tough, right? Like, best case scenario, obviously 3-0 there. Realistic scenario, 1-2, right? So you need to rack up the wins going into February as much as you possibly can, and not to mention add another quad 1 win to your resume. This would be a phenomenal win, easily your best win of the season if you get it. And that would get you back on track at home, headed into a Cincinnati game where the Bearcats are a little bit of a roller coaster, right? But you have to win this game if you were Texas Tech. And I think they do, by the way. I don't know what the spread is going to be. I think it's going to be a shootout, but I do think Texas Tech wins this basketball game out in the 806 on Saturday afternoon leading into the evening. Let me know down in the comments if you think so as well. Again, in my estimation, a must-win game. You have to win this. You cannot go to 0-3 in the Big 12 on your home floor. You just simply can't do it. Again, like the video, hit that subscribe button for 100% free content here on the channel regarding Texas Tech football, Texas Tech men's basketball, and everything in between. It's the largest group of Texas Tech fans on YouTube. There's no better time to join right now as we steadily march into this madness that we call March here in the not-too-distant future. So if you want 100% free content on your Red Raiders all year long, be sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell to join the Back to 12 squad today. All right, let's get some questions. Let's get some questions here. Tom, did you do this on purpose? Toppin needs to be tops here on out. Tom. If anybody's going to make the dad jokes here, it's the person without any children, i.e. myself. Okay? We can't be doing this, Tom. We can't be doing this. Vinny, big facts. Need the USA rocking. I think it will be. I think the students will be back in droves. I know, got the brother-in-law out there. I told him he better get his ass to the USA on Saturday afternoon, or he's probably not getting a Christmas present. It's a long way out, but I'm going to hold the kid accountable. You got to hold these kids accountable nowadays. Simple and plain. Got to hold the kids accountable. Period. End of story. Myself included. Hold these kids accountable. And if he's not at that game and doesn't send me a picture of it, no Christmas present. That simple. Call me the Grinch. I don't give a shit. All right. Interesting username, but we'll do it anyway because wiener dog. Who doesn't love a good wiener dog? Also, hot dog is sandwich? Had that debate at work today. I said no. Let me know your thoughts. As you can tell, I can go on tangents here. Would you rather have KO or C4 starting? KO. I really like Christian Anderson as the Chance McMillan kind of guy from last year off the bench, if that makes sense. Yeah, and C4 is just, he's so fucking good, dude. No, I'm not even sorry about my language. He's so good. He's so good. Absolutely sensational. So I would rather have him coming off the bench and playing that Chance McMillan role, where you're still playing really meaningful minutes. Like, I believe he played 29 minutes last night against Kansas State. Yeah, 29. I think that's probably where he's going to end up being, in that like 23 to 29 range, depending on the night, if that makes sense, and who gets in foul trouble, who doesn't. So I think it should be KO. I think he is clearly your best perimeter defender. That being said, I would be lying to you if I said KO has been playing well right now. He hasn't been. On really either side of the floor, I think he's trying to do too much and make up for the mistakes that he makes on the defensive end or the offensive end, whichever one it is. But he's a really good player, and he is vitally important to Texas Tech, specifically on the defensive end, because he is your best perimeter defender and a guy that still allows you to shoot from a high level on the outside. Not quite as good as Kerwin Walton when he's going, but KO on open shots in the corner last year as a true freshman at Drake shot north of 45%. So still a really, really good three-point shooter. These nuts, no pause, said, I don't know. I feel like C4 starting brings crazy offense. Also been a little bit more confident with Hawkins on ball defense last 2 to 3 games. Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, do you want to start a guy that's 5'11" and then basically have your small forward be Chance McMillan at 6'2"? Do you want that? I don't know if I want that. Like, at least Kerwin provides some size, right? Like, KO provides some size in terms of the length, right? So I think that that's where I'm at. And I'm not trying to say Kevin Overton is a giant by any means of the imagination or anything, but I think he provides length. And that's something that right now, Christian Anderson in his current frame, he has some length, but he's not physical enough right now. And that's not a knock. He's a freshman. He's going to grow into his body and get into a college weight room. He's already a star, in my opinion. But I think KO provides you something that really nobody else on this team does, and that's versatility on the defensive end in terms of guarding the perimeter. Because let's face it, Elijah Hawkins is going to get picked on, right? He's 5'11". You see teams already doing it, right? Like they're trying to get into ISO situations. They tried to get Coleman Hawkins last night to pin down Elijah on the block, and it worked a couple times. And that was honestly Kansas State's best offense. So why not have more length out there and allow Elijah to just focus on the perimeter and be that pest that he is in terms of active hands, quick feet, getting in front, maybe getting a charge called, maybe getting a steal, all that kind of stuff, and having that safety net of a little bit more length on the perimeter with you and Kevin Overton. That's kind of what makes sense to me. Let's see. Oh, transition into football. I didn't expect this. Vinny asked, any news on the QB spot? Morton healthy? I don't think we're going to know anything about Baron Morton until probably the summer, to be honest. I find it funny, though, that there were certain people saying Texas Tech wasn't in the market for a quarterback, and it was just leveraged by Carson Beck's agent or whatnot. That's a lie. Texas Tech was definitely going after a quarterback, right? That doesn't leak if they're not in the QB market, okay? So maybe that worries you from that regard, but I think they're going to move forward with Baron Morton. It sounds like they were shopping at other quarterbacks. I can't confirm it. I think it's just a rumor. Again, nothing to be able to confirm there, but it sounds like they were potentially, or at least reached out for initial interest on the South Dakota State quarterback that ended up at Iowa. That sounds right. Iowa. But yeah, I think Barron's going to be your guy as long as he's healthy. Maybe you have to reevaluate that in the spring portal window, but don't get it twisted. Texas Tech was at least putting feelers out there to see. And anybody that says different is probably fudging it a little bit, if you know what I mean. But yeah, that's where you're at. Morton will be the guy. Hammond back up. And if you need to go get somebody, hopefully you can do so in the spring portal window. That is a much harder thing to do. But to be fair, let's say Texas Tech from the jump, this is all hypothetical, right? Wanted to go get a quarterback in the portal. There weren't many better than Baron Morton. I'm just being honest. Like, again, Baron Morton, a lot of health concerns, but there weren't very many more, I should say, that were better than him in this portal cycle. This portal cycle was interesting in the sense of there were certain positions, and I think Texas Tech, lucky for them, the positions that were good were the ones that they needed to address the most. So the secondary, there were quite a few good secondary guys, quite a few good offensive linemen, and then as well as defensive linemen. So Texas Tech got lucky there in that regard, but there wasn't a lot of good edge rushers. There weren't a lot of good linebackers. There were a few good running backs and not a lot of good wide receivers outside of maybe like a handful, maybe two handfuls. And I think you added one of those guys in Reggie Virgil. So in the quarterback spot, there just weren't very many at all. I like your joke. Any players off of Notre Dame or Ohio State we go after once their game is over? Probably not. I think the guy, again, I mentioned him a little bit earlier, that I would probably monitor if I was a Tech fan. And again, not saying he's going to be a Red Raider, but I'm sure Texas Tech has interest, is Amari Evans, the Penn State starting wide receiver. He went for 2 catches, 55 yards, and a TD against Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. That's probably the guy that I think Texas Tech has the most interest in right now in terms of an impact wide receiver in the portal. And he just entered, I believe, yesterday officially. So his process could move pretty quickly, but he's a Colleen, again, don't quote me on this, Colleen Shoemaker, I believe that's the high school he went to. Texas Tech offered him at a high school, but he's a guy that runs track in high school. He's a 4.4 guy. Not the craziest stats. I think he legit has 21 catches this year and only 30 in his career total up at Happy Valley. But yeah, that's the guy I'd probably be watching for the most when it comes down to who could potentially Texas Tech add in the portal. Again, it's really late in the portal, guys. Like, classes start today at Texas Tech. So if you're going to hear something, I would assume you hear something relatively quick. If they want to get in there, but maybe not. Who knows? All right. I'm going to wrap it up there, though. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Again, before y'all head out, be sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell. Not bad. A 40-minute live. We love that. Plenty of questions. Previewed a must-win game, in my opinion, for the Red Raiders against Arizona on Saturday afternoon, going into the evening there out in the 806. You cannot start 0-3 at home in the Big 12. You just can't do it if you're Texas Tech. So you have to win that game if you are the Red Raiders. They survive at Kansas State. Got a couple of nuggets if you want to go back and rewatch this, if you're just now tuning in, about Texas Tech football and a couple of names to monitor, or a name to monitor, I should say, in the transfer portal at the wide receiver spot. But as always, y'all know what to do. Be sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button for 100% free content on your Red Raider Texas Tech football team and Texas Tech men's basketball all year long, whether it's on the gridiron, hardwood, in the portal, on the recruiting trail, anything in between. We've got you covered right here on the largest group of Texas Tech fans on YouTube in the Back to 12 podcast channel. And as always, stay safe and Recom Tech.